Thank you everyone for joining us on our September 2015 HONSAC meeting. Today we're having a special presentation from Scott Spallina, who is the Senior Deputy Prosecuting Attorney and Supervisor for Elder Abuse Justice Unit of the Office of the Prosecuting Attorney. Members and guests, I'd like to ask you to help me welcome Scott Spallina.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you for.
Thank you.
Welcome, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. First of all, is the mic, everything okay with that? All right, very good. Before I begin, I want to introduce you to somebody here. This is my father-in-law. He's on the cover of our brochure. And the reason we have him there is not only because he was free, which is very important, but also because if you look closely, he's in a wheelchair. About 10 years ago, he suffered a stroke, full paralysis, right side of his body. It devastated the whole family in that we instantly became caregivers. We instantly discovered what it was like to become a caregiver in Hawaii and how it affected all families involved. A little bit about the situation here in that, as many of you know, in order to get some help to come into your house, qualified, competent help, it usually runs anywhere from $25 to $35 an hour to have someone come and offer a brief respite so you can go out and do shopping or whatever. And that's expensive to a lot of people. And my mother-in-law felt that was too expensive as well. So she's a little bit paquet. She wanted to save some money, so she decided to get a discount caregiver. And where do you go to get something cheap? Craigslist. Now, for those of you that don't know what Craigslist is, it's an online classified ad. You can post anything there. If you want to get a stolen car, you go to Craigslist. If you want to get a hooker, you go to Craigslist. My mother-in-law got a caregiver from Craigslist. And I remember the evening my wife came home and said, we found the perfect caregiver. She says she's a Christian woman. She says she's going to open up her own care facility. She says that she's an open heart surgeon. I mean, all these great things that this lady was supposed to be. And I said, well, how much does she cost? Only $10 an hour. Okay, that's too good to be true. And that's the running theme of elder abuse, is that if it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true. And so I did a little bit of research on this woman, and what she would do is go into the household and she would slip and fall and sue the homeowner. That was her scam. And that's how close we became to being a victim of an elder scam just like that. Okay. Now, as a lawyer, I have to give my disclaimer. Basically, whatever I say, don't hold against my boss, Keith Kaneshiro. That's just a general disclaimer there. Okay. Now, today we're going to be covering a couple things. First of all, an introduction to our office and our team and exactly what we do. Warning signs of abuse in general, as well as overview of the current crimes. These are more the financial crimes that are hitting the islands, and also caregiver abuse as well. Now, again, I am from the Office of the Prosecuting Attorney, Honolulu office, meaning that we handle the crimes on the island of Oahu. So everything I talk about, it may be national trends, but all the crimes I'm going to be talking about are on Oahu. These are things that we're personally seeing here. These are down the street from where you live, across the street from where you work. These are things happening here on Oahu. Now, Keith Kaneshiro, he's the current prosecuting attorney and my boss. And the office basically handles probably 95 to 98% of all criminal cases on the island of Oahu. You have some federal cases, you have some state cases, but for the most part, we're handling the large bulk of it. We have approximately 120 attorneys in our office, and then a couple hundred support staff as well, including investigators. Now, what do? Obviously, we prosecute cases. We go to court. I was at court this morning. We appear before the judge. We represent the state of Hawaii in all criminal matters. But also we draft laws. Every year we go to the big square building over there and we try to introduce laws to help us do a more effective job in prosecuting matters. Additionally, we have an army of social workers. We have an army of social workers in our office called victim advocates. Believe it or not, attorneys may not be the most touchy-feely of people, and so we have social workers to help us communicate to some of the victims. This is especially important when we have child sex assault victims, when we have victims of domestic violence, and when we have elder victims that may need extra time and attention that our office cannot provide, or that I myself, who's in court or who's doing other things, may not be able to provide. So our office does have an army of social workers in the form of victim advocates to help explain and guide victims through the criminal justice process. And lastly, we educate the public. We're going to go a little more into this, but it's our philosophy that we would rather prevent crimes from happening than prosecute crimes from happening. That's one of the reasons we're here today. Okay. Now, our office is organized into different teams, anything from the screening and intake to, my eyes are so bad, juvenile offender, felony trials, domestic violence misdemeanor, domestic violence felony, career criminal. So our office is divided into specialties. Each of the specialty teams are specially trained to handle certain things. Let's say it's a drug case, I'll go to the drug team. Sex assault case, we go to the sex assault attorneys that are able to handle those type of cases. And you do need a special type of person to handle juvenile sex assault cases. Domestic violence, specially trained to handle those type of cases as well. And of course, elder abuse. Now, as articulated earlier, we've had a little bit of a history with elder abuse, in that it started in 2008 when then prosecuting attorney asked me, Scott, I want you to leave domestic violence and start the elder abuse unit. I was in domestic violence for about 12 years at the time. I was very comfortable there, and I said, I don't know anything about elder abuse. I had to learn a lot, and I'm still learning here. Today, we have now 4 prosecuting attorneys, 2 staff, and 2 interns, as well as support staff. So we have grown, and for a reason we've grown. These are the stats that I started collecting back in 2008 when we first began, and you will see from 2008 to the end of last year, we've had over a 300% increase in cases. Now, remember, these are only the cases on the island of Oahu we're talking about. This is not national, this is not neighbor islands. This is what's going on here. And this includes all your violent crimes, your sex assaults, and all your property crimes. But also remember, this is not even the tip of the iceberg of what's going on here. These are only the cases that we hear about and prosecute. When I first began this unit in 2008, I might have gotten a phone call from the public maybe once every 3 weeks or so. Now I'm getting about 3 to 4 phone calls a day. And these calls are not going to the police because they don't want to prosecute. They don't want to get anybody in trouble, but they somehow want to report to me, or they want to assess whether or not this is a elder abuse case or not. So I can tell firsthand that probably every 1 case that makes it to the court system, there's 25 to 50 cases that are not, because a lot of people do not want to prosecute these matters for a variety of reasons, which we'll get into. And then, last year we broke a record, which is not a record we want to break, and that's the most cases we had in a quarter. Now, we prosecute all matters, all felony matters right now, where the victims are 60 years and older. Now, why do we choose the term or the age 60? Because under the law, if you physically abuse somebody and they're over the age of 60, that's mandatory prison, enhanced sentencing. So that's how we came up with 60 as our cutoff of the cases that we'll handle. Now for 59, you're going to still go into our office, but you will not be handled by our team though. And we do take care of all the physical abuse, financial abuse, emotional abuse, and sexual abuse. So it doesn't matter if we have a victim that was sexually assaulted under the Nimitz Highway or someone that had their house burned in Kahala. We handle all elder abuse cases. And the only thing is, if you're 60 and over. Doesn't matter if you're incompetent, rich, whatever. We are handling all those cases there. And it makes it easier to do it that way as well, because HPD, the police, they know who to call. All they need to know is say, how old is this person? Good, we'll call this one number. which is our police our police number right there. Okay, we're on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The reason we are is because we wanted to be a rapid response unit, meaning that if an elder got their car stolen, typically what would happen is that if they were under the age of 60, a report might be generated. They might release the person that they arrested, forward those reports to our office. We review them, give it back to the police and say, okay, go out and arrest this person again and process it. In the meantime, weeks, if not months, would pass while that person is out on the street probably committing more crimes. But because it's an elder case, the police call us immediately and we go down to the police station. So they don't have to send the reports to our office. We're there, Johnny on the spot. Sometimes it is a hardship. I've been to the police station many at Christmas, many Cinco de Mayo. I don't know if that's a real holiday or not. Many, all the good ones. Super Bowls, usually the drinking ones. St. Patrick's Day, all the fun ones there at the police station. Anyways, so we do that again because we want to make sure that the elder community gets rapid justice. Also, we're vertical prosecution, meaning that we have one prosecutor handling it from beginning to end. As an example, and you've probably seen this, this will look familiar to you if you watch Law & Order, the original Law & Order. Basically, a crime occurs, then the police are called, and then the police will give us a call after they do an investigation. And at that point, that's when we decide what to charge. Now, we may or may not be in agreement with the police, and that the police might say, Scott, we have this type of charge, like an attempted murder, and we'll say, no, it looks like we only have a robbery or an assault. So we're the ones that ultimately make that decision. At that time, a prosecuting attorney is assigned to that case because that prosecuting attorney then will take the case to grand jury. We'll take the case, that's where I was this morning actually, grand jury, and meet with the victims. And this is like hours after, or a couple days after the crime has happened. So I meet with the victim, I talk to the victim, interview the victim, take the victim to either preliminary hearing or grand jury, and then I will be that victim's attorney throughout the entire trial process. Instead of that victim having to meet multiple attorneys and wondering who to call, that attorney is assigned to that victim. That's the thing that we do for our sex assault cases, our domestic violence cases, and when I created the team, I wanted to do that for the elder abuse cases as well. That way it makes the whole thing less traumatic, that the victim has to constantly explain what happened again. Oh yes, he took me under the underpass and he did this to me, he did this to me, this to me. I mean, imagine if you were an assault victim having to relive that over and over and over again to multiple strangers. It's ridiculous, it's not conducive to the rehabilitation. So that's something that we wanted to do. And then we obviously take this to trial in front of a jury. So we have to be multi-talented and not only knowing the laws regarding what cases to charge, but then also be able to do trials. Now, as I indicated before, when I created this unit, it was to enhance awareness, prevention, and prosecution of crimes affecting the elderly. And let's talk a little bit about our awareness. Last year we did 84 presentations. That meant that I'd drive to the different senior centers. I'd drive to the Eva Beach Community Rally, Ojai Street, Wahiawa. I mean, I was doing a lot of driving around multiple times a week. In addition to doing the pager duty, in addition to doing court stuff as well. And the reason we did that is because, again, we want to prevent crimes from happening. And one of the key ways to prevent crimes from happening is to educate the public regarding that. Now, some of our efforts do include going to the senior fairs. In fact, next weekend, the big one, the Good Life Expo, is going to be at the Blaisdell. That's a 3-day event with over 300 vendors there. Last year, I think they had 26,000 seniors and caregivers go to that. And we have a booth near the entrance. And we are there all 3 days, all Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, just talking and talking and talking. To anybody that wants to come by and grab some free candy, we usually go about 20 pounds of candy during that week there. And it's not taxpayer, I pay out of my own pocket, so don't worry about this. I can't believe they're spending money on candy. It's the Costco kind. And it's not the good kind of candy, because people always complain about the candy I give them. It's a cheap kind of candy. It's not sugar-free, that's more expensive. It's not the chocolate, that's expensive as well. It's a cheap candy there. And I will get complaints saying, like, how come you got this candy? And those, long story short there. And then some people, like breakfast buffet, they'll be piling it up there and get their sugar. But anyways, there, don't get me started on candy. But that's one way to get in the community and one way to find out what some of the problems are that are addressing not only the seniors, but the caregivers as well. And also the children of seniors. One trend that I've been seeing is people have come up to me all the time now and said, Scott, how can I prevent my mom or my dad or my grandparents from giving away all their money? That seems to be the number one complaint I'm getting. They're giving it to the neighbor, they're giving it to the caregiver, they're giving it to the lottery person, they're giving it to anybody that asks. And they're going through hundreds of thousands, they're bankrupting themselves. So as a result of that, I've been appearing on a couple of radio shows that do financial estate planning. Had to learn to think outside the box, because a lot of people say, oh, the prosecutor's office, all they do is like prosecute crimes. No, we're trying to find solutions for those crimes. And sometimes we have to get creative as well. Now, these are the crimes that we've handled in our office. And we do, again, everything from murder to forgery to assaults. In fact, today, when I leave you good people, I will have a assault or an adult son broke the nose of his senior father. And then after that, I will have a case where this woman stole a checkbook from a senior and tried to cash it at a bank. And so it makes the job interesting because you don't know what you're going to get next. And it's only a phone call away. Now, when we talk about elder abuse, a lot of times we're talking about the financial exploitation crimes, because those are the most common that we're seeing here. And what do these crimes include? Cashing checks without permission, forging signatures, stealing money or possessions, coercion to sign documents, improper use of power of attorneys, misappropriation of funds, and scams using deceit. A lot of people don't realize that when we say financial abuse, they might think it's only a property crime. Where's the real harm? And we have to educate the judiciary as well, because oftentimes the courts will say, well, it's not a murder, they didn't get killed, or they didn't know broken bones or anything like that. But when you're dealing with a financial abuse of a senior, you're dealing oftentimes with someone on a fixed income. You're dealing with someone that's not working full time. You're dealing with somebody that they saved their entire life for the money they have, and they can't start all over. So it's not just a stumbling block for them. It's not just a speed bump in their career. It's oftentimes a roadblock. It's oftentimes means they may be foreclosed upon. I've gotten cases where, actually, what's today? This is September, the beginning part of August. There was 1 week when I got 3 calls. Each of those calls, someone lost their house. And 2 of them were because family members stole the house from their parents, for lack of a better term, tricked their parents into signing over documents. One was the parent thought they were just co-signing on a loan. And this was like 10 years ago. And then they finally did some estate planning, and they realized you don't own the house. You quitclaim deeded the house to someone else. And so that was a shock to the entire family. Another case, this woman took out $300,000 on the equity of her home to do a remodel on it so that her daughter and family could move in and help be a caregiver. She made the mistake of putting all that $300,000 into the joint account, and the daughter cleaned it out. And then we can't find the daughter, and the mom doesn't know where the daughter's at. All she knows is that the daughter took a first-class trip with her family to Disney World. And that's the last that they heard from the daughter. Interestingly enough, of those 3 cases, none of the victims wanted to report it to the police. So when I say, and these are crimes that I'd gladly go to court and prosecute, but you need to have the cooperation of the victim. And that's one thing that drives a lot of siblings crazy, because they'll see what their sister or brother did to their parents. And I have to explain saying, yeah, that's terrible, and they'll be paying for it in the afterlife, hopefully. But the victims are the parents, though. The victims are the ones that have to say, yes, I want him arrested, because we need the victim's cooperation to prosecute the matter. And oftentimes the parents will not pull the trigger and say, yes, I want him held accountable. Now, we do have parents that do that, and they've seen like dramatic turnaround in their family, in that you have, let's say, an adult child that is addicted to drugs and has become homeless, and now is going to the home and stealing from them, stealing from the parents, taking the television set, stealing the car, selling it for drugs. I've met many, many parents in court that when I meet them right after the crime, they have this doubt in their face, like, did I do the right thing? Did I call the police on my own child? And then over the months and years, when they see that the court system is set up to address substance abuse issues, when they're addressed to say, you know what, we'll take you to Hinamauka. You'll spend 6 months, a year in a residential drug. And if you fail that, you go to prison. So there's your options right there. It's like tough love, literally tough love. And I've seen so many success stories from that, and so many parents thanking me and thanking our office for, this is how you handle it. Because if you know someone that's addicted to substances, they'll lie, con, cheat to say, oh yeah, no, don't worry, Mom, I'll get a job tomorrow. Oh, I promise I'll go to my AA meetings or like that. But they can't make those excuses in front of a judge. And those judges will say, no, you do this, you document it, or you go to jail. And so we've had, fortunately, a lot of success stories in that. But we know how difficult it is for parents to turn in their own children. Okay, who are the potential abusers? Obviously, it's anybody in contact with the senior. That's what it comes down to. And we're never surprised at saying, oh, really? That person there? Really? I mean, when I was early on in my career doing elder abuse, we had a case involving a beautician. I was like, really, a beautician? And what turned out is that this beautician, she would give extra attention to this one victim, one of her customers, convincing her, you know what, I can give you, and the victim was 85 years old, I can give you a lifetime of facials for $80,000. And the woman paid for it. So I mean, I hope that she lives to be 200 years old to collect on that, but we see people oftentimes abusing their trust. And unfortunately, it comes down to caregivers as well. We're seeing a lot of caregivers abusing the trust that they're given to them. And we're going to go through a couple of examples of that later on. The number one abuser, however, is family members, because they know where the money's at. They have access to the money. And since 2008 doing these type of cases, I have never, very, very rarely have I had an abusive family member, a financially abusive family member, ever admit to me that what they did was wrong. They will justify, rationalize. Oh, I take care of Mom, so I'm owed this money. Or I'd get this money when they die anyway, so I'm just taking it now. Or I do some work around the house, and so I should get it. Or they were bad parents, so I'm owed this. Children that do this, they never see themselves as the bad guy. They always somehow try to turn it around on their parents. And that's probably the most devastating thing you see, is when a parent is wondering, how in the world could my child have stolen from me? How could they? And they have a hard time grasping that concept. And it comes down to, they don't think they're stealing from you. They think they're owed this money. Why are seniors targeted? Well, obviously, the longer you live, the more stuff you have. It comes down to that. You have the assets, you have the equity in your home. I mean, one of the first things you'll get when you purchase a house and get a mortgage is you're going to get junk mail. You can get all these friendly people saying, I can help you get money out of your house. We'll give you pre-approved checks. We'll give you pre-approved this, pre-approved that. So the more you have, the more success you have, and you don't even have to be rich. I've had seniors saying like, I'm on a fixed income, so they're not going to target me. Wrong. If you just have 2 cents, they're going to want both of them. So there is no safe income to say, I'm too poor to be a target. No, you're always going to be a target. Oftentimes, seniors are lonely as well. And that's what makes elder abuse such a terrible crime, is because you have perpetrators looking into the vulnerability of their victims and realizing, you know what, I can capitalize on that person being lonely and I can make a lot of money. For instance, a couple years ago, we had this gentleman. He drove around neighborhoods looking for houses that were kind of in disrepair, preferably hoarding, people with hoarding houses there. He'd knock on the door, and then there's 2 women that reported these crimes, and say basically his story was the same, that you have family, don't you? Yes, but they never come over because of all your treasures in your house. No, they don't. And they always tell you to clean up your house. Yes. And wouldn't it be nice, though, to have your family come over and visit? How about this? I can build an extension onto your house. Then every holiday they'll come over, every Christmas, every birthday, they'll come over for Sunday dinner. Wouldn't you like to have your family in your own house again and not have to give up all your treasures you've collected over the years? He was so good at this, so good at like tugging on the heartstrings, picking on the vulnerabilities of loneliness, that one lady wrote out a check for $70,000, another lady wrote out a check for $100,000, all in the same week. We never caught the guy. And again, these people prey on the vulnerability of seniors. And a lot of people mistake the fact, they're thinking like, oh, these seniors, they deserve it if they think they can get something for nothing. They deserve it if they believe they actually won the lottery and they're spending all this money. But take a look at it from a parent, an aging parent. They're a guardian to their children. They take care of their children their entire life. And they're realizing that there might be a time in the future where they may not be able to take care of their children. So they want to live a legacy to their children. Oftentimes, when talking to these victims of financial crimes, especially the lottery system crimes, they'll never say like, oh, I was going to take that money, I was going to go to Vegas and blow it. I've never heard any of those victims say it. Usually it is, I wanted to send my grandchildren to college. I wanted to buy my son a house in Hawaii so he could stay here. And so it's their desire to continue to be a parent that makes them vulnerable to a lot of these scams, these get-rich-quick schemes, something for nothing. And that's the heartbreaking thing, because they're trying to do good. They're trying to continue their role as a parent and becoming a provider to their kids even after they're gone, and they're falling for these crimes. And lastly, we're finding that a lot of them are trusting that way. Okay. Now, some of these are warning signs that you can be spent over several different types of scams. Urgency is a big one here. Basically, people know you make poor decisions when you're rushed to do so. Hypothetically, like when you go into a used car lot. It's easy to get into the used car lot, but try to get out of the used car lot, though. They will talk at you nonstop, nonstop, nonstop. An example of an urgency type of scam is the distressed relative scam, commonly called the grandma scam, where you get the call in the middle of the night saying somebody's in trouble. Now, it may sound ridiculous in talking about this in broad daylight. We seem to be rational people and everything, but imagine getting a phone call like that in the middle of the night. I was at Hawaii Kai Retirement Home a little while ago, and a woman came up to me, and said she fell victim to this scam because she got the call and someone said your son or your grandson was traveling in Mexico, he got into an accident and he's in jail right now, and because he's an American he's being beaten up, and so he asked to call you for bail money. Could you do that? And then she was kind of skeptical, saying, well, can you put him on, please? So sure enough, they put on another individual, another male, and all he did was cry. He said, Grandma, help me. And she said that it sounded so sincere that someone was literally weeping on the phone for 5 minutes, to where she didn't want to take that chance. And so she sent them the $1,500 they were looking for. Interestingly enough, the following day, the grandson did call her, just to check up on her, and she laid into him and said, Grandma, what's going on? And she explained, and she knew it was a scam at that point there. And then that night, they called her back again and said, oh, he got arrested again, and she had a couple of choice words for them at that time. But it's happening in Hawaii, and every time I go to these presentations, again, 84 last year, someone's always going to come up to me and say, I got that call, or my friend got this call. Because again, these are happening in Hawaii. Isolating the victim. This is terribly important in that we are all social creatures. We all like to interact to some degree with other people. And the longer we are alone, in my opinion, the less common sense we have, because we'll be so desirous of some companionship. And I've had more than one comment about caregivers taking advantage of this loneliness. I had a call several months ago. This daughter found out that her dad married a bar girl. And the only way she found out is going through the bills and saying, what's this bill for? Oh, that's for my wife, paying for her apartment. And what's this bill for? Oh, this is for my wife's car, paying for the car. He met this woman, 20, 30 years his junior, and she convinced him to marry. They never consummated the relationship. She was living separately, but they were married on paper, and he was paying the bills and everything. And the daughter did not, and this was like a year and a half they were married. And the only way she found out was helping him through the bills. I had another daughter call me up complaining about this one caregiver that would go over to their parents' house, and the dad felt compelled to help her out because she'd always be complaining about money problems. So he'd write her a check for $1,000. She said, Scott, it'd be easier for me to take my dad to a hostess bar every night for companionship instead of letting this caregiver come into the house. So again, isolating the victim, loneliness are key warning signs. That if you see a senior being isolated or alone, you need to watch out for them. Secrecy. When you win the lottery, the fake lottery obviously, you're going to be told a couple of things. You're going to be told, congratulations, you won. You're going to be told, send us money to pay for the taxes, the fees and everything. But you're also going to be told, don't tell anybody you won, because there's a lot of scam artists out there. So they're isolating the victim from that. Also, the letters will say, congratulations, you won. Don't tell anybody you won, and send us the tax money immediately, or you're going to lose your lottery winnings. So then you have that sense of urgency as well. So here you are, you won $1 million. You can't tell anybody or consult with anybody because the letter says not to, and you have to give them money right away, or you're going to lose that $1 million. So you have all those going on there. This is an example we had. This lady, she won the lottery, and to prove that she won the lottery, they gave her a credit card. That's the credit card they gave her. So you won $20 million. To prove that you won $20 million, here's a credit card right there. So she thought she won. The thing is, though, that she had to pay to activate the credit card. Okay. But she had the physical credit card, so she knew she won because she had the physical credit card. And they said, now any fees that you pay to activate your credit card, don't worry, because we're going to put it right back on the credit card. So you're not going to really lose any money like that. So she said, okay, so no loss. So $500 she sends. Another letter saying, oh, we forgot to tell you about this fee as well. Okay, I'm worrying for like $500. What's a couple extra $100 here? She kept on going to the post office, mailing the money. She went to the post office 70 times. She sent them $160,000. She was following good money after bad. It's like she described it as like playing the slot machine. And that when you pull the slots, you get like the cherry bar. I think, oh, almost. Pull it again, strawberry, banana, almost. So every time she sent money away, she thought that she could do it. She had to stop because she went through her husband's retirement savings, and the money they had set aside for the disabled daughter's trust was all gone. Again, these are only property crimes, but they're devastating to certain people. A pawn shop that I went to with my daughter, because she lost her phone, I was too cheap to buy her a new one. I went to a pawn shop, and after explaining to them that I wasn't there to arrest anybody, but just buy something stolen, they said, well, what's going on is that they're seeing more and more seniors coming in. And the seniors are selling their wedding rings, and they're selling their bracelets because they won the lottery, and they need money to pay for the fees. And they say, Scott, it's really sad because when I get a senior, when I get an 80-year-old woman coming into my neighborhood, coming into my pawn shop, passing my bouncer with tattoos and piercings and stuff like that, coming to me, I know they've already borrowed money from their family and friends. I know that they've already taken out loans, because we have a lot of people with loans out there because they won the lottery. And now they're selling what they're actually wearing because they're so deep in it. I've gotten more than one phone call from realtors saying, Scott, I have this person wanting to sell his condo to pay for the lottery winnings, because then when he wins it, he's going to buy several condos with those. So this is devastating to a lot of seniors out there. And obviously too good to be true. If the offer's too good to be true, it's just that, too good to be true. This gentleman here, his name is Jason Pasquale. He was promising people between 25 and 50% profit on investments. He was Army reservist. He owned a local entertainment company, and he was taking in a lot of money. And what was he doing with that money? He was basically just going to Vegas and gambling. It wasn't that hard. He wasn't a sophisticated person, but he was able to take over $1 million from 29 investors, because he had the looks, he had the charms, and he had the message that people wanted to hear, that I can almost double your money, just give it to me. Okay. Emergency tragedies. Basically, whenever there's a crisis, people want to profit from that. Katrina, there was all the scams going on. We get the Aniki scams, we get all these scams here, and that's what happened in this case here. Mysterio, I just saw her actually yesterday in court, because she still owes us $10,000. 4th Street Mall and Hotel Street. A gentleman was walking down, and she approached the gentleman saying, "You look like a nice Christian man." And basically invited him to lunch at the McDonald's there, and then convinced him that the younger lady with them had stomach cancer and needed money for treatment. Over the next 3 days, she got from him $34,000, I think. And it's 34,000. Yeah, and actually he was in the process, $34,000. Yeah, he was in the process of withdrawing $120,000 from his bank, because they say, you know what, we like to pay you back the $34,000. We have this house in California that we're renovating. Once we renovate it, we'll sell it and we can pay you back all your money. We just need $120,000 to renovate the house. So he goes to the bank. They stand outside where there's no cameras. The bank teller is saying, why do you need this much money? Why do you need $120,000? Oh, because those ladies standing over there, and he was completely honest and stuff like that. Next thing you know, she calls the police, and then I get a call like 10 minutes after that. And it's funny, I get the call, and I just hear heavy breathing, like, and I was like, what's going on? And it's like the 2 police officers running from the main station to downtown because they want to catch these ladies who are outside the bank and everything. So it's a good thing most of the cops are in shape. Okay, and again, we covered loneliness. We're seeing a lot of actually sweetheart scams, sweetheart swindles. As our senior population is getting older, they're also getting more sophisticated in using the computer, and they'll go on different sites. And there's a lot of different sites out there. They have the Match.com, obviously, you have the eHarmony, but also you have sites to cater towards older seniors. Like Our Time. I made the mistake of signing up for Our Time for my sister. She's older than me. She's very bossy. So I wanted to make someone else's life miserable instead of mine, so I was going to hook her up with a husband. And I signed her up. I made the mistake of using my address and not her address. And so every day now I get at least 3 to 5 emails from people saying I'm the love of their life, I'm good looking, let's get married. So it's an ego boost whenever I open up those emails. But it's interesting in that all I did when I signed up for that is I just gave a brief description of like she's a churchgoer, she sings in the choir, and she likes dogs or something like that. No pictures, no nothing, no address. Yet I'm getting all these guys that look like male models from Abercrombie and Fitch emailing me saying that I look beautiful, I'm their soulmate, there's tons and tons of things. Like, how can you even know what I look like or what my sister looks like and everything? So it's just interesting that, and people fall for it. Actually, senior dating sites now, sites basically gearing towards senior dating, to where, and these women, they don't look like they're seniors, these Russian, they'd be ID'd if they walked into a bar. Yet they're targeting senior men. And if you don't like Russian women, then how about Asian women? Again, they are targeting senior men, and that's, they know where the money's at, basically. Okay, caregiver abuse. Changing radically from the previous thing there. It's a big problem. More than 2 million elderly Americans are victims of neglect or mistreatment every year. And these stats are only stats from nursing homes and home care providers, but we're having a hard time finding out what's going on in private pay care homes because you just don't have, there's a lot of private pay care homes out there, and it's very interesting. You go to National Elder Abuse Incident Study said that only 15% of elder abuse is reported in the care homes. And I believe that because some of the calls I'm getting or I'm hearing about through other sources, I'm wondering why that's not coming to my office. I went to UH Law School here, and occasionally I'll meet my classmates, and they'll say like, hey Scott, I'm surprised you guys didn't take this, or I'm surprised you guys didn't take this. If an abuse happens these days, it seems like, in a care home, the victims don't so much report to the police as sue the care homes. And so we're seeing a lot of civil type of cases because when you have a care facility, you need insurance, okay? And if someone slips and falls or someone gets abused or whatever like that and it's not reported to the police, you're talking about a lot of payouts being made out there. So I'm hearing it from my colleagues in the legal field saying, Scott, yeah, we just handled this $100,000 plus settlement from a care home. And I'm thinking like, I didn't hear anything about this. I'm going through my reports and stuff like that. And like, it's not being reported. So that's disturbing. I guess they're getting their justice a certain way, but a lot of things aren't being handled, in my opinion, the way they should handle. These are stats that we got from Adult Protective Services. It only goes up to 2012. I'm sure they have more current stats now, but since I don't work there, I didn't ask for them. But anyways, you see an increase in cases being investigated and cases being confirmed. And these are statewide, and actually I think it's broken down by islands. Oops, there we go. There. So it's not going away. Now, one thing obviously is that the state programs like Adult Protective Services, the state programs like Long-Term Care Ombudsman, they have to cover all the islands. And when you talk to John McDermott, he's almost like a one-man show. And saying, John, how many care homes are there in Hawaii, the state of Hawaii? And he'll say like, oh, upwards of almost 500. It's like, okay, so who inspects them? Oh, I get to. It's like, how many times do you inspect them? Oh, twice a year. So I went to law school to avoid math, but even I know that it's like, that's physically impossible. I mean, unless you're changing the laws of physics or something like that, you cannot inspect. And he acknowledges that he has to rely a lot on self-reporting, on other people reporting. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of pukas going on there. Caregiver neglect, here's a definition, and you'll see it later on, so I'm not going to read you a lot of things here. But basically, it can be anything from financial abuse, which we're seeing a lot of caregivers financially abuse people, to simply neglecting them. And neglect to a certain extent can form a criminal conduct there. Okay, many reasons. Caregiver stress, obviously. And it's sad, and I'm always hesitant about talking about us prosecuting caregivers, because oftentimes they are ill-trained. Oftentimes they're not really criminals per se, but put in impossible situations that they're not equipped to deal with. So I stress over and over again that we do look at the gray in certain areas. We do look at the background of the people involved and whether or not they themselves should have known better or not. Unfortunately, we've seen people become the scapegoats of poor running of a care home, where they'll bring in a family member from another country and say, here, take care of these 3 people here. And they have no skills or whatever like that. And then suddenly one of those people ends up in an ER with pressure sores down to the bone. And it's like, who points the fingers, who's going to be arrested, who's going to be doing all this stuff like that? Do we really want to go after this 20-year-old girl that was just brought into the country last year or whatever? And so yeah, we look at all the things, who's going to be criminally conduct, and it's difficult. With this one gentleman, actually, really good guy. His dad had a massive heart attack, became incapacitated, so he separated from his wife, who remained on the mainland. He became a caregiver for like 5 years. And from all reports, he was a very, very good caregiver, except one day he was changing the bedding, the diaper of his dad, and the dad missed himself, and the son just lost it. And just started hitting the dad repeatedly, to the extent that detached retina, to the extent of just bruises all over the body. And it happened to be the same day that the physical therapist was coming, and he fully admitted to the physical therapist, he fully admitted to the nurse, he fully admitted to the police. He admitted because he knew, and he had done wrong, but we did not prosecute him to the fullest extent of the law because he was under extreme, and unfortunately the dad subsequently died, not as a result of that, but then he went to the hospital, and then stuff happened at the hospital, and he passed away a couple months later. So we weren't going to link it to the son. But then homicide gets involved, and homicide did a full workup of the building, and everybody had nothing but nice things to say about the son and the sacrifice he made. And so he didn't spend jail so much as other like mental health counseling and everything, which he needed. Signs of caregiver abuse. Obviously, we're looking at not only the physical signs of malnutrition, poor hygiene, and the like, but clothing. And a lot of these are more common sense, especially when you get into the financial abuse by caregivers. If you have a caregiver that's only bringing down $25,000 a day, and yet she's driving a brand new Lexus SUV, then there's the disparity in the income versus their quality of life. One of our first cases that we had, that I had anyways, involved this one woman. She was hired by an agency. The agency then was hired by a wife to help care for her husband. Over the course of a month and a half, about 8 people from this agency went into the house. The wife then discovered all her jewelry was missing. And then the police did an excellent investigation. The suspect confessed to it, gave back all the jewelry. The only problem is when she gave back all the jewelry, the victim realized that she got extra jewelry. And it's like, like this ring doesn't belong to me, this bracelet doesn't belong to me. Unfortunately, this person probably was taking from other patients as well and couldn't keep straight who she was taking from. Mr. Mark Genetiano. This was an interesting case in that it happened at a care home, a well-respected care home. When it happened, it made headlines. I mean, there was like helicopters in the parking lot. They just got so much media attention. What happened, and we were concerned, and at one sense you're thinking to yourself, okay, well, they're highlighting a certain issue, but it's also creating a chilling effect that who wants to report this kind of crime if you get this media circus attending it. It's an incident where you had a CNA who thought he was being funny, and he'd be fondling the female victims during the changing and dressing and everything like that. He did it in front of other CNAs who didn't come forward immediately. And it happened multiple times. And I talked to those other CNAs, and they're in a tough spot because he was the class clown, he was well liked, he was the party organizer, all that stuff. And yet then it's like, wait, that's wrong. But then if I say something, then I'll be ostracized because I need to work with these people. And so they're going through a lot of stuff as well. During the course of this case here, I had so many civil attorneys following me around because there was a lot of money to be made here because they wanted to sue this organization. And so yeah, a lot of lessons were learned in this case here. And yeah. This woman, she ran a care home, and she basically let one of her patients not do too well. And she was held to a higher standard because she knew better. She was sentenced to 20 years jail for manslaughter because she was aware of what might happen if she let these wounds fester and get infected and everything. So her situation is different than the family member that's just brought in from a different country to care for the same person. It all comes down to knowledge. Again, we're having this case here. I didn't handle this particular case, but I handled another one where basically what would happen is that in this one care facility, they would put all the patients in this one room and not really monitor them. And unfortunately, you had these patients, some of them were not all there, and they would assault the other patients around. Unfortunately, a lot of our sex assaults that we've gotten from care facilities have been patient on patient. And it most likely had been going on for a while. It just so happens that a CNA walks in on it. And the victim is usually incapacitated mentally. And so, but it's easy though to go into some of these care facilities, and my wife and I are actually mobile notaries, and so we're sent to a lot of care facilities around the island, and we see how some care facilities are really nice and some of them are not so nice. And we see how sometimes they just park people up the hallway and just put them in a room and then just do what they need to do because they're understaffed, underpaid, underappreciated. And so yeah, it's a difficult situation. So I always tell people that if you have to put a loved one in a care facility, no matter if it's a fancy schmancy one or a low income one, visit them often. Visit them often. When my father-in-law, who you met earlier, had his stroke, he went to a care facility, we were there all the time. And it's funny that we were there all the time. Every time we walked in, who was behind us? One of the staff people saying, oh yeah, he's doing such a good job. And they fluff his pillow up and give him extra attention and everything like that. And yet we saw the person that was sharing the room get zero attention because the family members were never visiting. So I encourage anybody, family, loved ones, friends, acquaintances, neighbors, if you know of somebody in a care facility, visit them often. You don't have to do much, just go over there, say hi, hello, but make yourself visible to the staff. It's very important. Okay, we're going to skip through a couple of these here. Signs of care abuse, basically it's just a facility. If the facility is a well-run, nice facility, then you're going to see a level of attention that you may not get, and that level of attention may result in a better caring of these individuals. Same with care neglect. I've seen rundown facilities where attention to detail is not there. You have tripping hazards. A senior falls down, it can be devastating to their life. They're no longer independent. There's mandatory reporting. That's the statute there. We're not going to go too much into it. But basically, there are certain people, given their profession, they have to report. Now, who are they going to report to? They're going to report to these people right here. You got Adult Protective Services, Department of Health. You also have HPD as well to report to. There's some other resources that people can call, the Long-Term Care Ombudsman, as well as the Senior Helpline and our number. Don't report to us, but if you have any questions, there's a number there. Thank you very much for your time.